Can we share contact information, please?
So that's not me. That's them not letting me unmute not letting me unmute me. You know what I mean? Admin, maybe I'll go to the
We
admin.
can hear you, Paula.
I have no idea.
Paula, we can hear you.
I don't know why you asking me questions.
Paula,
Chat.
Paula, we can hear you.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. You do. I actually put my hand up that I wanted to say something because my chat is not where it's supposed to be.
Paula, we can hear you.
Where's my chat? Okay, so I don't have chat. So I can't chat to anybody. And I don't have a speaker.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience today. Welcome, and thank you for attending the commission meeting today, which is day 2. I am Sarah Soto Taylor. I am the Undersecretary of the Government Operations Agency and the Chair of the California Building Standards Commission. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is 9:10 on February 27th, 2025. Ms. Maeda, please call the roll.
Undersecretary Soto Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Patel.
Here.
Commissioner Sasaki.
Here.
Commissioner Mickelton. Commissioner Santillan.
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez. Commissioner Klaus-Buckner.
Here.
Commissioner Rambin.
Here.
Commissioner Haskin. Commissioner Legray.
Here.
Commissioner Stockwell.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maeda. We do have a quorum for this meeting. At this time, I'd like to remind the commissioners participating remotely to disclose whether any other individuals 18 years of age or older are present in the room at their remote locations, and the general nature of the members' relationship with any such individuals. And this is pursuant to Senate Bill 544. We can start with Commissioner Patel in Los Angeles, along with Commissioner Santillan.
Sorry, I was dealing with YouTube issues, but you're both pinned now. There's no chat in the meeting, but we could hear you talking earlier.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
This
This is Commissioner Patel. I'm here at the Division of State Architects offices in Los Angeles, and I am here with Commissioner Santillan as well as Laura Mills from the Building Standards Commission. There is nobody else in the room with us.
Thank you. Commissioner Stockwell.
Good morning, everybody. I'm participating from my home office, and there's no one else in the home besides myself.
Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Kevin.
I cannot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Day. I'm Deputy Executive Director of the California Building Standards Commission. Once again, as a reminder, we will be starting today with agenda items 9 and 10, which were taken out of order yesterday to start at the beginning of today's meeting. And then again, please note that comments from the public on issues not on this agenda will be heard during agenda item 24. Pursuant to Senate Bill 544, Chapter 216, Statutes of 2023 became effective January 1st, 2024. This meeting has a physical location where the majority of the commissioners are present. The public is able to present in person and also has the ability to participate via Zoom. As a reminder, commissioners participating remotely must always remain on camera. If at any time a commissioner needs to turn their camera off for bandwidth or other issues, please notify the chair. Today's meeting can be viewed on the CBSC YouTube channel linked on the meeting agenda. I would like to remind the YouTube viewers there is an approximate 45-second delay. Before reading the meeting instructions, I'd like to share some housekeeping items. In the event of an emergency, look for the doors with the exit signs. Exits on the right side of the door will lead you back towards the elevators and the restrooms, and there is no code required. CBSC meetings operate under the requirements of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, set forth in Government Code Section 11120 to 11133. This commission meeting has been scheduled for 3 days. In the event the commission completes the agenda items prior to February 28th, the commission will adjourn the meeting on that day as it completes the agenda items and will not convene the next day. We will likely break for lunch around 12:30 of each day of the meeting as needed. The public may provide comments by calling in on the Zoom teleconference number provided on the meeting agenda or by using the raised hand feature in Zoom. For members of the public attending in person at either the Sacramento or Los Angeles locations, please complete a request to address the commission form if you wish to comment on a specific item. The form is buff in color and is available at the table located near the room entrance. Please turn the completed form into a CBSC staff person. Instructions are provided on CBSC's meeting webpage. If you have difficulty with the technology, please call CBSC's office at 916-263-0916. I will now read the public comment and Zoom instructions. If you wish to make a comment on a specific agenda item, please listen for the chair to ask for any comments from the public. The chair will first go to members of the public in the Sacramento and Los Angeles conference centers that have submitted speaker cards. The chair will then call on members of the public participating on the Zoom webinar that have raised their hands. Then the chair will take comments from the public from the Zoom phone line. At this time, please take yourself off mute. If you like, you may announce your name and who you represent before making your comment. Please mute yourself when done commenting, and keep in mind the 4-minute time limit for each individual speaker. The chair will continue through the call queue until there are no comments remaining. The commission will then proceed to the next agenda item. If possible, please call from a telephone, not using a speakerphone, and log into virtual meetings with one device only. This enhances the commission's ability to hear your comments clearly. And thank you, Madam Chair.
As described earlier, we will begin with agenda item number 9, which is the Division of the State Architect Access Compliance, proposed adoption of amendments to the 2025 California Building Code, Part 2, Title 24, and California Existing Building Code, Part 10, Title 24. We have representation from the Division of the State Architect Access Compliance, I believe, on the line. If you could please introduce yourselves and provide an overview of item number 9.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson and Commissioners. I am Eric Drever. I'm the Principal Architect of the Division of the State Architect. I'm joined here in the room today with me is Michelle Davis, Supervising Architect, Kirkland Cox to my far right, Senior Architect, and Benjamin Matre on my left, Senior Architect. And of course, Ida Claire, State Architect, is joining us remotely. The DSA Accessibility Unit is pleased to present to you today our proposals for the amendments to the regulations of the California Building Code for the 2025 California Building Codes. The proposals are a result of an extensive and transparent process which began during pre-cycle activities on October 31st, 2023, with a public workshop held by DSA and attended virtually by nearly 200 individuals and representatives representing persons with disabilities, code users, accessibility advocacy organizations, local jurisdictions, and industry representatives. DSA recorded and analyzed all suggested proposals, then formalized select proposals and presented draft initial express terms to the DSA Access Code Collaborative on March 12, 2024. Refinements made to the proposals based upon the feedback received at the Access Code Collaborative meeting were presented to the Building Standards Commission's Code Advisory Committee on June 4th, 2024. Then further refinements based upon comments received leading up to and during the Code Advisory Committee meetings were made and published for comment during the 45-day comment period held from July 26, 2024 through September 9th, 2024. DSA requests approval of the amended building standards for the 2025 Building Standards Codes, Parts 2 and 10, and staff are prepared to present the proposed amendments in numerical order and will proceed at the direction of the chairperson. Would you like us to proceed, Madam Chairperson?
Sorry, thank you.
And
Yes, please proceed with the summaries of those.
And just a quick point of order for DSA, Eric, if you could maybe just slow it down a little bit for the ASL interpreter. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Absolutely. We had discussed that leading into this, and I always find myself speaking faster by habit. I apologize. Michelle?
Good morning, Commission members. I am Michelle Davis, Supervising Architect at DSA Access Codes and Policies. Presenting with me today is Kirkland Cox, Senior Architect. Our package today has 21 items. 5 include substantive changes to the requirements for accessible features, and the remaining 16 items are clarifications or administrative changes needed to improve understanding for code users and authorities having jurisdiction. Several of the proposed amendments relate to public housing. DSA has received numerous inquiries about access code requirements related to public housing, housing at a place of education, and transient lodging, highlighting the need for additional clarity for code users. Other changes, such as increased clear floor areas, are at the request of code beneficiaries. If there are no questions or instructions for us, we will begin with item 1. Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a change to the definition of the term multi-bedroom housing unit in Chapter 2. DSA proposes to substitute the word bathroom, which is defined in the CBC, for the phrase toilet and bathing room, which is not defined. This change is for clarity and aligns with the Federal Fair Housing Act. Item 1 is related to proposed items 11 and 15. Should I proceed with the additional summary items, or do we want to review them one by one?
Yes, if you could just please keep going so that we can hear all of the summaries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For item 2, DSA proposes to strike language at section 11B-213.2, exception 5, regarding toilet and bathing rooms at transient lodging guest rooms that are not required to provide mobility features. This language is also found at CBC section 11B-603.6. Duplicative language is prohibited under Health and Safety Code section 18930A1, the 9-point criteria for building standards. Item 2 is related to item 8. For item 3, DSA proposes to clarify provisions in section 11B-224 relating to guest rooms and is applicable to either transient lodging or housing at a place of education, or to both. These proposed changes better align with the language at the Code of Federal Regulations, the Fair Housing Act, and California specific provisions for transient lodging that were in effect prior to the incorporation of the ADA standards. Item 3 is related to item 10. For item 4, DSA proposes to amend existing electric vehicle charging space exceptions in section 11B-228.3.2 to clarify the requirements for code users and code enforcement entities, which were unclear to many. We have received comments that stakeholders would like reference to programmatic requirements of the ADA and FHA. However, programmatic and operational requirements are not building standards and therefore not appropriate for the building code. DSA has not amended the exception for specific individual EV drivers to include language covering program accommodations or reasonable modifications because such language is outside DSA's authority under Government Code Section 4450. DSA notes that the requirements for common use charging spaces at public housing facilities are stated in the main body of Section 11B-228.3.2, and that individually assigned public housing spaces may be a combined parking and charging space, and requirements are covered at Section 11B-208.1, Exception 2. Additionally, all newly installed EV chargers are required to provide accessible operable parts under Section 11B-228.3.1.2. Item number 5 is a proposed substantive change needed to direct code users from the scoping section for public housing at Section 11B-233 to technical requirements located at Section 11B-809. This direction is currently missing from Section 11B-233. Item 5 is related to item 12. Kirkland, I'll pass it to you now.
Thanks, Michelle. Item 6 is a proposed administrative change to correct a typographical error in Section 11B-233.3.1.2.6.1, which is currently incorrect, leading to confusion for code users. Item 7. DSA proposes to add an additional introductory instruction to the list of requirements for units where site and practicality may make full compliance unachievable. This item 7 also corrects 2 typographical errors in section pointers.
Item 8 is related to our earlier item number 2. This proposed amendment clarifies a California-specific provision that is applicable only to transient lodging facilities and not to housing at a place of education, which has requirements for residential dwelling units with adaptable features that exceed those for transient lodging facilities.
Item 9. DSA proposes to clarify requirements for detectable warning services at blended transitions that are lengthy and continuous. The perspective of width and depth is relative because pedestrian traffic can be parallel to the blended transition or perpendicular to the transition. The proposed language orients the code user in application of the requirements. CBC section 201.4 allows for undefined terms like transition and states that the ordinary accepted meanings as defined in the collegiate dictionary to be applied. Item 10 is related to earlier item 3. This proposal clarified that space for personal lift devices are only necessary at transient lodging facilities where the underside of beds are frequently blocked.
Item number 11 is related to proposal items 1 and 15, clarifying where the word bathroom applies and where the term toilet and bathing room applies. In this proposal, DSA has used both terms to denote that the requirements are applicable at both housing at a place of education and transient lodging facilities. Item 12 is related to the earlier item 5 and is a substantive change that DSA proposes to clarify the references for residential units with mobility features. Add an additional reference for residential units with adaptable features, and add additional subsections. The additional subsections clarify that buildings with 3 or more dwelling units are required to provide door signal devices, that when the facility provides viewing devices at primary entry doors, residential units with mobility features must be provided with an additional viewing device placed at a height that is usable for wheelchair users. And that when washer and dryer appliances are provided inside these units, they must provide accessible features. This item is within the parameters established by Government Code Sections 4450 and 12955.1, as required by Health and Safety Code Section 18930A2, the 9-point criteria for building standards.
Item 13. DSA proposes to remove reference to multifamily from the residential dwelling units with adaptable features in section 11B-809.6. As written, the term defines the unit and not a multifamily building. In the 2022 intervening code cycle, DSA proposed and adopted clarifying scoping requirements in section 11B-233.3.1.2, which clarified the requirement that newly constructed buildings with 3 or more residential dwelling units must provide residential dwelling units with adaptable features. Therefore, the reference to multifamily in section 11B-809.6, which is intended to provide scoping and is thereby misplaced in the technical requirements, is proposed to be removed to provide greater consistency and eliminate confusion. Item 14. DSA proposes to amend the requirements of 11B-809.8 to provide clarity for interior doors with residential dwelling units with adaptable features. Existing language in the code required interior doors to comply with section 11B-404.2, yet subsequent requirements in the section provided a list of specific requirements for interior doors that conflicted with section 11B-404.2 and created an invalid exception to the requirements. Conflicting requirements are a violation of Health and Safety Code 18930A1, also known as Item 1 of the 9-point criteria for building standards. The proposed language lists the specific requirements of section 11B-404.2, which are applicable to interior doors in residential dwelling units with adaptable features, and provides greater clarity to the requirements that are specific to interior doors in residential dwelling units with adaptable features, provided in section 11B-809.8. To further clarify the requirements, the existing exceptions in section 11B-809.8 are proposed to move to the more appropriate location in section 11B-809.8.3.1.
For item 15, DSA proposes to clarify the term bathroom as noted in previous items 1 and 11. This proposal also adds the reference to backing at bathtubs that was not included in previous rulemaking and deletes references to backing for tubs and showers in powder rooms, which do not have these fixtures by definition. Item 16, this proposal is in response to action taken by the Commission during the 2022 intervening code cycle requiring further study. This item proposes to eliminate the confusing and incorrect code section reference and clarify how to measure for compliance. The following item number 17 addresses the clear floor space as a result of the action taken by the Commission during the previous intervening code adoption cycle. For item 17, consistent with commenters and the further study determination by the Commission during the previous intervening code cycle, this proposal addresses the clear floor space outside showers at residential units with adaptable features. This proposal preserves the larger clear floor space referenced in previous editions of the CBC at the request of code beneficiaries. This proposal includes a new figure that illustrates the location and position of the clear floor space. For item 18, DSA proposes to require that clear floor spaces provided at dining surfaces be adjacent to, but not overlap, the required accessible route. This proposal has been made at the request of code beneficiaries and is necessary because Chapter 11B, Section 11B-305.6 allows clear floor spaces to overlap an accessible route unless specifically prohibited. Requiring mobility device using diners seated at a table to reposition to allow others to pass behind them is inconvenient and does not provide the same experience as is provided to others. In item 19, DSA proposes to amend a new provision in the 2024 International Building Code Model Code to replace the Model Code reference with the correct California Building Code reference to chapters 11A or 11B.
Item 20. DSA proposes to amend the California Existing Building Code section V06 to add a pointer to the CBC. DSA has historically added a banner indicating that projects under DSA authority for accessibility should refer to the more restrictive Part 2 California Building Code, the CBC, Chapter 11B, and its reference to Chapter 10 for accessible means of egress. Additionally, DSA does not adopt the less restrictive Title 24 Part 10, California Existing Building Code, the CEBC, Section 306, Accessibility for Existing Buildings. As such, DSA proposes to remove the text of CEBC Section 306, including its subsections, and amend the banner to state that public buildings, public accommodations, commercial facilities, and public housing are required to comply with Chapter 11B. References to CEBC Section 306, maintaining accessible features, is covered in Section 11B-108. DSA's amended banner creates clarity from the requirements for housing in the note provided by HCD regarding housing required to comply with Chapter 11A. DSA has received inquiries from code users regarding the application of CEBC Section 306 to projects that are covered by CBC Chapter 11B. By striking CEBC Section 306, the requirements for accessibility would only be located in Chapter 11B, printing both CEBC Section 306 and CBC Chapter 11B is duplicative and conflicting, and is a violation of Health and Safety Code 18930A1. That is item 1 of the 9-point criteria for building standards. Item 21. DSA proposes to amend the reference standard provided in Chapter 16 of the International Code Council Existing Building Code, IEBC, eliminating the Section 306 subsections that reference ICC A117.1. The IEBC is proposed to be adopted as model code for the California Existing Building Code. DSA does not adopt either Section 306 or ICC A117.1 for accessibility requirements, and instead adopts Chapter 11B, which is modeled on the 2010 Americans with Disabilities Act standards. However, local jurisdictions may adopt Chapter 16 separately and would inadvertently be referencing a standard that is not adopted in California. Including this section would create conflicting regulations, a violation of the 9-point criteria, Health and Safety Code 18930A1. Under Government Code Section 4450, DSA has the sole authority for all 12 parts of the building code that relate to accessibility for public accommodations, commercial facilities, and public housing. Therefore, DSA has the authority to propose striking this language. DSA does not propose to strike the remaining sections, sections 502.6, 503.18, 1011.4, and 1101.6 that relate to general room acoustics. The 2010 Americans with Disabilities Act standards and the CBC Chapter 11B scoping does not include room acoustics for scoping requirements.
This is the end of our presentation, and we invite comment and questions from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that very thorough summary of all of the changes. Very much appreciated. We will now have item number 9 open for commission discussion.
This is Commissioner Rambin. I have a couple of questions, comments, I guess. On item 4 regarding EV charging, I believe you said that the EV spaces that are designated for specific residents are covered in a different section of Chapter 11B. Is that correct?
That is correct. And at public housing, EV spaces may also be parking spaces. It's the only location where they're permitted to be both.
Would it be beneficial to have a pointer in 11B 228.3.2 for those individual parking spaces? When I read this section, I thought it was indicating that specifically assigned parking spaces with EV charging weren't required to be accessible.
Well, there is a pointer already at 11B-228.1. So
Okay.
I'm not sure we need a second pointer.
Great.
We
So
can
when
certainly
you'll-
add an advisory.
I think that's fine. My second question is on item 15, where the term clear maneuvering space is referred to. I don't see that used in any other parts of chapter 11B, nor is it defined. And I'm wondering if there's another defined term that could be used instead, like clear floor space is defined, or other terms that are in 11B 305 and 11B 306.
I'm going to need a minute to find that phrase. Are you talking about section 11B-809.10.4?
Correct.
I see your point. This is currently existing language in the CBC that we have not proposed to change for this meeting. We could potentially look at that in the future.
I would recommend it. As a code user, I'm familiar with clear floor space, but that term, I don't know how it's defined and how big that is. So just for consistency, I don't see any action needed now, but for clarity in the future.
We'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Thank you. No more questions.
Questions from any other commissioners, discussion items?
This is Commissioner Sasaki. So we got, the commission got comments from Kendra Mueller. I'm sure you are quite familiar with those comments. I guess we'll probably wait for comments to be read or speakers to talk about those issues. There's their letter, and this is the Disability Rights Council. This is letters dated January 3rd of 2025. It goes through all of the items that you just discussed. Most of those items, it appears that they support, but there are a few items like item 4, the EV spaces, they have disagreements with. Anyway, it would be probably good to hear responses eventually when they presumably talk about their disagreements. Anyway, it's more of a statement that we're like, if they don't come on, then probably I will ask questions about some of their comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Sasaki. May I respond?
Yes.
We did receive the letter. It is largely duplicative of the letters and the comments that we've received during the 45-day public comment. Certainly, we would invite Disability Rights California to comment today, should they choose to. We have covered those comments in the final statement of reasons.
Thank you.
I don't see any hands from the commissioners that are in Los Angeles or from the other Commissioner Stockwell. So I'm looking around the room. No other commissioners have any items to discuss. So we'll now take comments from members of the public on item number 9.
Okay. There are no hands raised and, okay, Kendra, go ahead. Kendra, you're muted.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Good morning to Deputy Director Day, Chair Tong, Commissioner Suzaki, Michigan, Mikatin, Flossbergner, Patel, Centillion, Allegre, Stockwell, Rambin, Haskin, and Ramirez. And hello to CBSC staff and esteemed DSA staff presenting here at this meeting. My name is Kendra Muller. I'm an attorney for Disability Rights California, the agency statutorily protected to protect and advocate for disabled Californians. We thank the Commission for the opportunity to provide public comment and for its continued support to have these agenda items at the first of the meeting for accessibility. As mentioned, DRC has provided written public comment for each of the items expressed in agenda item 9. We support items 1 through 20. I do have additional comments on items 4, 6, 7, 9, 12, 16, 17, and 20. DRC also opposes item 21. I'd like to respond specifically to the comments just made. First, DRC's letter was largely duplicated because the last DSA updates were largely not changed. There was no substantive changes made by DSA between the two additional comments, so our comments remain the same. I will specifically address item 4 from Commissioner Suzaki. We do support this item. However, we do express that in the 2025 intervening cycle, the exceptions that were not addressed by DSA in this cycle, therefore, we do support the edits that were addressed, but we do recommend that for the next cycle, there be some further study on the exceptions themselves, as our interpretation of these exceptions do see that they limit disabled residents from equally accessing these electric charging vehicles, and the language does seem a little outdated and may be discriminatory to different disabled individuals, including both for employment and housing purposes. I would also like to specifically address number 6, item 6. This is another item that we do support, and just offer that this item be further addressed in the 2025 intervening cycle. That is the same with item 7. Again, I think there are some things that we can address easily in the 2025 intervening cycle. Specifically, I do want to address item 21, as this is a sole item that DRC does oppose. We oppose, I think, for the same reasons that were given to strike it. DSA does not adopt CBSC Chapter 16. Therefore, we don't think that this is needed or applicable to even strike, and supported by the matrix adoption table as well. We are concerned that superfluous deletion of some of these some of these requirements of just resources that are listed in CBSC Chapter 16 may inadvertently cause issues on providing equivalent accessibility elsewhere.
Just sorry to interrupt, just a quick time check. You're at 4 minutes, so if you could just take a few moments to quickly wrap up your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the majority of my comments. Again, our detailed public comments are in the written comments referenced below. I think it is a little bit difficult to go through all of the discussions that we have when the items are all taken together in a bunch. So I will stop there and allow for further discussion. Thank you so much.
This is Commissioner Sasaki. Can we have DSA respond to that last item 21? If I understand what Kendra was saying, is that the DSA is proposing to amend portions of Chapter 16 of the CBSC, but DSA doesn't, Chapter 16 isn't adopted. And DRC's concern is that removing portions of Chapter 16 might cause confusion or might result in, if whatever some jurisdiction actually wants to use it, that wouldn't be there. Anyway, can someone from DSA respond to those concerns?
Yes, thank you. Chapter 16 is reference standards that should be applied to the California existing building code. And within that chapter, it lists ICC A 117.1-17, which covers accessible and usable buildings and facilities. And then that reference standard lists several IEBC sections under 306 that would use ICC A 117.1. However, we do not adopt that reference standard at all in California, so it is not applicable. And if we strike the section IEBC sections 306 and its subsections per item 20, then we also need to strike the sections that are referenced under ICC A 117.1 in item number 21. I hope that clarifies.
It does. Thank you.
Were there any other comments from the public online?
There are no other hands raised and there are no phone participants. Oh, I'm sorry, we got another hand.
Okay, thank you. Janice, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure whether this is not a comment on that particular issue, it's a comment on another issue. Should I speak now or wait?
No. We're taking public comments on item number 9 at this
Okay,
time.
I have no
Item
comment
number
on
9.
that. I have it on 10.
All right, thank you. Okay, hold tight. We'll move on to that next.
Okay.
Any other?
No other comment.
And I know we did receive written comment. We've already discussed that. Were there any other written comments?
I'm sorry. Ida has her hand up. Did you want to hear from Ida at DSA?
We can see.
Hi, just to
can't-
clarify, Janice would like to comment on the access proposals. I think she's referring on item 9 in the proposals, not item 9 on the agenda. So it is likely an opportunity for her to comment now. It's just on a different item in DSA's proposal.
Yes.
Oh,
No.
I see. That's fine then. Thank you.
So Janice, are you, you're available to make your comment on the DSA item when you're ready?
Janice?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm commenting on item number 10. And this has to do with the personal lift devices in transient lodging. And this is something that I commented on before, but I do not think that the statement of reasons coincides with 11B 806.2.3.1. And the reason why is housing at a place of education, by definition, is transient lodging. That's coming from the ADA. We have adopted it in the CBSC. So housing at a place of education is transient lodging. So under 806.2.3.1, for the personal lift device, it says in transient lodging facilities, a clearance for use of a personal lift device shall be provided at the bed. And it goes on to describe it. That's fine. I have no problem with it. But when I look at the statement of reasons, the reasons is saying they only want that at hotels, not at student housing. And I review a lot of plans, and the way the code would read right now with this, it still would be required under student housing because it is transient lodging. What I would say is you want an exception, which we can do because we are the ones, the CBC, that added in personal lift device. So under 806.2.3.1, we can put an exception on there that this is not applicable to housing at a place of education. But right now, the way the code you're proposing it's written, it would be applicable. So it does not coincide with your statement of reasons. Student housing at a place of education is transient lodging.
Are there any other written comments on this item?
Yes, Chair. No other comments. Okay. In addition to Kendra Muller with Disability Rights California who spoke, we received a written comment from Eugene Lozano with the California Council of the Blind. Mr. Lozano recommended approve on multiple sections. He also had no position on some listed sections, but for the most part, it was approved.
Are there any further conversations, discussions by the commissioners on any of the public comment that we just heard?
Can they respond to the last commenter on item 10?
GSA.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate that. DSA has considered the statements made by the commenter, and we have reviewed the applicable statutes at the federal and state level. And we disagree that housing at a place of education is solely transient lodging. Housing at a place of education is also housing, and this is very clear in the requirements for the Federal Fair Housing Act. Since it is also housing, the standards for housing offer more access for rooms not required to provide mobility features than transient lodging requires. The Department of Justice, in reviewing this requirements for transient lodging and housing when they were editing the ADA standards for the 2010 version, concluded that the benefits of applying transient lodging standards to housing at a place of education outweighed the benefits of applying the residential facilities standards. However, they did not say that housing at a place of education was transient lodging. They are only applying certain standards to housing at a place of education. In California, the requirement for the personal lift floor device was in our building code prior to the adoption of the 2010 ADA. So it was existing regulation that was applicable only to transient lodging. By clarifying this, DSA does intend to keep this requirement solely for transient lodging. And I will also note that in the California Building Code, the definition of transient lodging does not include housing at a place of education. However, the definition for public housing includes housing at a place of education and may include some transient lodging facilities as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thorough feedback and follow-up. Commissioners, anything else that we need to discuss on this item? Well, that would conclude the public comment portion. I will turn item number 9 back over to the commission and entertain a motion to consider the division of the state architect access compliance, proposed adoption of amendments to the 2025 California Building Code, Part 2, Title 24, and the 2025 California Existing Building Code, Part 10, Title 24. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Rambin, move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Sasaki, second.
It is moved and seconded that the adoption of the amendments pass. Is there any further discussion from the commissioners regarding this motion? Hearing none, we will now have a roll call vote. Commissioners in favor, please indicate by stating aye. Those opposed, please indicate by stating no. And if abstaining, please state this. Ms. Maeda, please conduct a roll call vote. Commissioner Santian,
Yes.
Commissioner Rambin,
Aye.
Commissioner Sasaki,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Legray,
Aye.
Commissioner Stockwell,
Aye.
Commissioner Klaus-Buckner.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous on the adoption of the amendments and the motion is carried. Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 10. Department of Housing and Community Development proposed adoption of amendments to the 2025 edition of the California Building Code, Part 2, Chapter 11A, Title 24. Will the representatives from the Department of Housing and Community Development please introduce yourself and provide an overview of item 10?
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Veronica Turbin, Associate Construction Analyst, representing the Department of Housing and Community Development. I'm here with Mitchell Baker, Assistant Deputy Director, Kyle Kraus, Deputy Director, and other staff members that are ready to help if needed. Thank you for the opportunity to present HCD's proposed changes to Chapter 11A for the 2025 California Building Code and to respond to any questions you may have related to our proposals. HCD proposes building standards, updates through a series of amendments to Chapter 11A that are editorial or to provide clarity. There is no intended change in regulatory effect for any of the proposed amendments today. The proposed changes were discussed at the Accessibility Committee Advisory meeting on June 4, 2024. The text with proposed changes was made available to the public for a 45-day public comment period from July 26, 2024 until September 9, 2024. There was no subsequent public comment period. A total of 2 comments were received during the comment period, and HCD responded to all accordingly in the final statement of reasons. One commenter included comments that were not specific to HCD's proposed amendments and has been addressed within a separate section. Those comments did not result in any changes to the express terms or rationale. The final express terms text is currently before you, along with supporting rulemaking documents. As a quick summary, there are 9 items that were presented at the Code Advisory Committee meeting, and 8 out of the 9 were approved on June 4th. Item 2 was sent back for further study. After our internal review and of the meeting notes, HCD decided to withdraw the item. In conclusion, HCD requests your approval for adoption of the final express terms and rulemaking package for the 2022 California Building Code, Chapter 11A. We also thank the commissioners for your review, time, and sharing of expertise, and we're available to answer any questions or provide further information. Thank you, and this concludes my overview. Would you like me to go item by item, or?
That would be helpful if you could provide a summary, please.
Yes. So first item, Chapter 11A, Housing Accessibility Section 1101A.1 Scope and Section 1102A.1 were required. So based on Government Code Section 12955.1, that grants the Division of State Architect, DSA, the authority to promulgate regulations for public housing. HCD proposes to remove the reference to Chapter 11A related to public housing accessibility. The access standards for public housing are located entirely in Chapter 11B. And this modification, it's just regulatory, and it's just to clarify the distinction between the two agencies. And we did communicate with DSA and worked on this. Second item, Chapter 11A, Housing Accessibility, Section 1101A Scope. So after we reviewed all the documents presented in July for the CAC meeting, we decided to withdraw the proposed amendments to item 2 from section 1101A.1. Third item, actually all the items from here on, we are updating section numbers that from chapter 10 that were inadvertently left in, and now we are proposing to update them. Would you like me to go item by item on references?
Yeah. No, I think we're good with the overall summary.
Okay.
So does that conclude your overview of this particular item? Thank you. We will go ahead and open item number 10 up for commission discussion at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I see none. I don't think we have any hands up from our remote commissioners. All right. If not, then we will go ahead and take comments from members of the public on item number 10.
We have Kendra.
Hello and good morning again to the chair, commissioners, CBSC staff, and HCD's Veronica Turdine, Michael Baker, Kyle Kraus, and their staff. This is Kendra Muller. I'm an attorney for Disability Rights California. We thank the Commission and HCD for the opportunity to provide public comment. DRC supports items 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9. For item number 2, which was withdrawn, we thought this would be useful for code users for clarification. So DRC requests further explanation from HCD on why it did not proceed with that clarification. DRC also supports items 3 and item 6. However, we do have minor amendments seen in our written comments that should be reviewed for the 2025 intervening cycle. We understand that HCD only reviewed these items to update the section numbers. However, the minor amendments for 3 and 6 provide further clarification and should be addressed here or in the 2025 intervening cycle. Finally, DRC does oppose item number 1. We believe deletion of the sections at this time will cause unnecessary confusion and also potentially conflict with other applicable codes and their intersection with the ADA 2010 standards. Furthermore, some of the language is not clear. Mainly newly constructed covered multifamily dwellings, which can also be defined as public housing. We believe that clear language for code users would be newly constructed covered multifamily dwellings, which are covered by the definition of public housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Would HCD like to respond?
Of course. Thank you so much. My name is Veronica Turdin. Again, I represent HCD. I can start with the first item. So, as stated in the ISOR, the Government Code 12955.1 grants DSA the authority to develop regulations for public housing. We coordinated those updates with DSA. However, we cannot express our opinion if Chapter 11B meets the FHA. We received and responded to a request from DSA and a petitioner regarding 11B's authority. I think it was about a year ago, to oversee regulations for newly constructed covered multifamily dwellings that also can be defined as public housing. And as you know, it's based on the funding. So if it's publicly funded, it's covered under public housing. Do you want me to keep on going to the other items, or Mitch or Kyle, if you guys want to add to the first item?
We are still in public comment portion. So do we have other public comment?
Yep. Not on that end of things, but DSA has their hand up.
DSA.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioners. In brief, DSA does support the exclusion or the strike through that's in item 1. We did have extensive coordination with HCD and feel that it's in support of item 1 of the 9-point criteria to remove conflicts.
Commissioners, are there any other discussions on what we've just heard? Did we receive any written comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. We did receive written comment from Kendra Muller, Disability Rights California, who spoke. And we also received, this is the same public comment from Eugene Lozano with the California Council of the Blind, also sent to HCD recommending approved and no position on multiple sections.
Thank you. I believe that concludes the public comment portion of this item. So I will turn item 10 back over to the Commission and entertain a motion to consider the Department of Housing and Community Development Proposed adoption of amendments to the 2025 edition of the California Building Code, Part 2, Chapter 11A, Title 24. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Sasaki move to approve.
Commissioner Glassberger, second.
It's moved and seconded, the adoption of the amendments. Is there any further discussion from the commissioners regarding this motion? Hearing none, we will now have a roll call vote. Commissioners in favor, please indicate by stating aye. Those opposed indicate by stating no. And if abstaining, please state this. Ms. Maeda, please conduct a roll call vote. Commissioner Stockwell,
Aye.
Commissioner Klaus-Buckner.
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Legray,
Aye.
Commissioner Rambin,
Aye.
Commissioner Sasaki,
Aye.
Commissioner Santillan.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous on the adoption of the amendments, and the motion is carried. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Executive Director who has some comments.
I want to open the discussion for item 17 if HCD wants to do that, and I will summarize the topic, and I will let the HCD explain further again if they want to do that. So we had in item 17 two sections, 310.3 and 310.4 related to hotels and motels. If you remember the conversation, we were going back and forth. And the final vote was to adopt the initial proposal that HCD had based on the charging language. However, after the meeting, we further researched that and HCD did. We had a brief discussion, and the point was that there may be a conflict created or an issue with design, construction, and enforcement pertaining to hotels and motels being in two sections related to non-transit lodging. And Kyle and Mitchell, do you want to explain further, or you want me to get into the details? How you want to?
Yes, thank you. This is Mitchell Baker with Department of Housing and Community Development. Thank you, Executive Director Bumbeloff. Really appreciate the overview and would welcome an opportunity to provide additional context here. So yesterday, the commissioners voted on HCD's proposal for Part 2 of the California Building Standards Code, the California Building Code, and approved HCD's proposal as amended. Item 4 of that proposal included amendments by HCD related to Section 310.4 for residential occupancies R3, which struck out with more than 5 guest rooms and left in hotels non-transient and motels non-transient. This was an administrative error, and it is HCD's intent to also strike out the words hotels non-transient and motels non-transient to avoid conflict mentioned by Stoyan with the existing definition in Section 202 of the California Building Code for hotels and motels that specifies 6 or more guest rooms. Striking out hotels and motels will also alleviate any potential design, egress, height and area limitation impacts if hotels and motels of any size are permitted under residential group R3. HCD respectfully requests that the commissioners rescind yesterday's approval of Part 2 and consider a new vote to allow HCD to administratively strike out hotels non-transient and motels non-transient in item number 4, section 310.4, aligning with our original intent. This will allow HCD to carefully evaluate and consider if additional amendments are needed in a future code adoption cycle. and will remove vague language that may create inconsistencies with design and construction. The commissioner of the Building Standards Commission may have additional information on process here. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Is the council here present?
Vienna?
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
Council.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'm just wondering if it's in order.
Yes, we will discuss her and she can explain for
okay.
Yes, the commission may consider reopening this item. I don't think a vote needs to be taken because the item is still on the agenda and the meeting hasn't finished, so we could always reopen an item if necessary. I just want to clarify from HCD's perspective. So my understanding is that the way the vote was, your item was proposed, and as a result of the vote that was taken yesterday, the item would be in conflict with one of the 9-point criteria. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, because it is creating a conflict in the law now, the way it's been adopted. Okay, so what we are doing is taking another vote to correct this 9-point criteria issue and basically comply with the intent that you HCD had through the regulatory rulemaking process in what you were trying to accomplish.
That is
Right? Does
correct.
that sound about right? Okay. Okay. Then that would be permissible.
Commissioner?
I have a question for the council, but isn't this a substantive change?
Yeah, arguably it is a substantive change, but the intent of, so it's a little bit hard to explain. The way that the item was proposed initially yesterday is actually in conflict with one of the 9-point criteria. So technically it shouldn't have gone forward like that in the first place. However, it sounds like what was intended was for there not to be a conflict with the 9-point criteria when the rulemaking process was going on the last few months. So it's a little bit backwards. It is a material change, but the initial vote technically created a material conflict with the 9-point criteria because of the way the item was presented. So while it is a material change, it's not the kind of material change that the commission wouldn't be allowed to consider. If that makes any sense.
Further questions from the commissioners?
But that's very confusing because you can use that on any substantive change, almost any argument.
Well, if you had, so an item shouldn't have come to the commission with a conflict of the 9-point criteria, period. So the fact that this was presented in a way that was already creating a conflict in the law and didn't meet one of the 9-point criteria, arguably the commission should not have voted on it as presented because it was not meeting the 9-point criteria. So the action the commission could have taken had this been clarified would have been to reject that item yesterday or amend it to not conflict with the 9-point criteria. So this argument could not be used with any item because usually items do not come to the commission with a conflict in the 9-point criteria already. So that should have been caught earlier. And that's, I think, what HCD was trying to explain. If I'm getting that right, and HCD, if you want to chime in, I'm not putting words in your mouth.
This is Commissioner Rambin. So my understanding is R2 has always had hotels and motels in that occupancy. They've never been part of R3. And this was really, it was sort of a typographical error in what was being proposed in R3. And what we approved yesterday put hotels and motels in both categories, and there was no way to distinguish if it was R2 or R3. And now we're saying we're just getting rid of that. It's an editorial change and making it clear that they're always R2.
If I can clarify it, and I'm sure Kyle would like to add some information too, but so R3, hotels and motels in R3 is a new model code. So it was added to the model code With clarifying that this
The
is
small
for five
one.
or less.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
So HCD was trying to fix that. And I see Kyle's hand, so he can.
Got it.
Yes, at the pleasure of the commission, if I may just say a few words.
Sorry, I had you muted.
Okay.
Yes,
So this is Kyle Kraus, Deputy Director with Housing and Community Development, Division of Codes and Standards. I appreciate Executive Director Bumbalov alerting the commission that this hotel and motel language is newly added, has never been in Group R3 occupancies prior to this 2024 IBC. So HCD did not intend to leave the hotels and motels in as stated, and we made an administrative error and unfortunately created this confusion, and we apologize to the commission for the administrative error, and we're just trying to clean this up. And alternatively, we could consider withdrawing the item and taking this up in intervening code adoption cycle. Thank you.
So Vienna, are there two options? One is to rescind the vote, or could we also just go ahead and correct this administrative error at this point in time?
So the yesterday's vote has to be rescinded probably anyway because it voted on the item as a whole. So that should be rescinded, and then two possible pathways. One, HCD reintroduces the package with that one item withdrawn, and then the commission votes on this newly presented package with the item withdrawn. Or the commission can approve as amended with the understanding that this is a technical error to now be in compliance with the 9-point criteria rather than be out of compliance with the 9-point criteria. So there's two paths. It just really depends on what the commission, if the commissioners want to discuss and see what they prefer, or if HCD has a preference on kind of reintroducing the package with that one item withdrawn, whichever way. But the vote yesterday, if it is in conflict with the 9-point criteria and it presents a conflict in the law, that vote does need to be rescinded.
We have further discussions here at the commission. So Commissioner Rampin.
Just a quick note, if we can speak up though, because we're competing with the air and our ASLs having a hard time with our room.
Yes.
So my question is, why did HCD feel the need to classify all hotels as R2, even small hotels?
Yeah, I would be happy to speak to that. This is Mitchell Baker with the Department of Housing and Community Development. So HCD has a California amendment within Section 202 of the California Building Code that defines hotels and explicitly states that hotels and motels include 6 or more guest rooms. So to have language in R3 that specifies a threshold of 5 or less would conflict with existing provisions, and to counsel for DGS to align with their comments, that would create a 9-point criteria violation for a conflict with existing regulations. Hopefully that answers the question. If I can have a moment to provide some insight on one of the two options for withdrawing, I just want to make sure everyone's clear what that would look like. If HCD was to withdraw our proposal, the model code language as written would be codified within the California Building Standards Code. And that means it would reflect hotels, motels, less than 5 guest rooms, creating that same conflict I just mentioned a moment ago. So I want to make sure that's clear that if we were to pursue a withdrawal, it would create an additional conflict with the 9-point criteria. Thank you.
So Mitchell, to avoid that, what is your recommendation?
HCD's recommendation would be to allow the administrative strikeout of hotels non-transient and motels non-transient in item number 4, section 310.4. That would provide HCD the ability to avoid any sort of 9-point criteria violation and pursue some additional analysis during the next intervening cycle to determine if additional language should be proposed to align with or harmonize with the model code language.
One
May I ask
additional point, Kyle Kraus, Housing and Community Development, Division of Codes and Standards. This would also preserve the status quo that's currently codified in the 2022 California Building Code, section 310.4.
Commissioner?
I would agree with HCD. We would have to, amend it, approve it as amended. And this way also, it doesn't change probably the economic financial statement as well. Because then you have a conflict with what you are proposing, saying there's no cost impact. But if we rescind those sections, there could be a possibility that there might be a cost impact. Am I correct? If we rescind those and we have conflicts, there could be a possibility of additional cost impact.
I'm not, this is Kevin with Building Standards Commission. I don't know that there'd be a cost impact because I think there's a statute involved. There would just be a conflict that HCD would need to resolve in a future cycle.
Okay.
That's why the withdrawal is off the table. Yeah.
Either way, the addendum sounds like the best option. I'm still confused about the legality of it, and maybe the council and I can have a side. Like, I need to learn more about that than maybe I understand, but there are moments where even a minor correction is out of order, and sometimes it's something that's relatively major is now in order, and I need to learn or understand that process better. So maybe I can have a side conversation with our council, and so I can do my job better as well. But yeah, I don't see any path forward except changing it to approve as amended. At least that's my opinion. By the way, this is Commissioner Glassberger. We always forget to say that.
I would like to make a ask a clarifying question of HCD. This is Viana Barbu, attorney for the Building Standards Commission. I would like to understand in terms of materiality of this change, when you were going through the rulemaking process and this item was presented to the public for public comment, was HCD's intent to do what it is seeking to do now? Or was HCD's intent to present the item as it was presented yesterday with this conflict? And I think that goes directly to the materiality of this change, because if this item was presented to the public intending to create, not intending to create this particular conflict, but inadvertently when you put the package together, it was written in a way that actually created the conflict, that would tell us more. So I would like to understand what was presented to the public in terms of what HCD intended to do with this item.
Yes, thank you. This is Mitchell Baker with the Department of Housing and Community Development. To respond to that question, consistent with our rationale for this proposal, we identified a conflict that existed with the existing definition in section 202 of the California Building Code. So at the initial proposal in our initial express terms and our initial statement of rationale, we identified that conflict with the existing definition. And so our intent was to remove that conflict with model code language proposal and existing California amendment. So our intent all along was to remove this conflict. Hopefully that answers your question.
And did you receive any public comments or participation from the public about this, that anything significant?
I do not recall any sort of comments directly related to proposals under section 310.4 during the pre-cycle or during the rulemaking process.
Okay, so that is what to Commissioner Klaus Bruckner's point is what I was trying to clarify, that even though because of the action taken yesterday, this seems like a material change, the intent with the material that was presented to the public and the way that the rulemaking was carried out, the intent was always, it sounds like, to do what we are doing today, what HCD is seeking to do today, not what happened yesterday. So this change, even though it seems material, it's not material because it's actually complying with what HCD intended all along. That unfortunately resulted in this conflict that happened yesterday.
Any other conversations? So just to be clear, I believe what we need to do first is entertain a motion to rescind yesterday's vote. That's what we do first?
Okay. Yes.
I'm seeing Deanna nodding, so that is what I will do. All right, so I would like to entertain a motion. Wait a second, I'm on the wrong thing. 20. Yes, okay. So I'd like to entertain a motion to consider the Department of Housing and Community Development, the proposed adoption of the amendments to the 2025 California Building Code Part 2, Title 24, to rescind the vote from yesterday.
This is Commissioner Klaus Bruckner. I'd like to move to rescind item 17 from yesterday's vote and bring it forth as a secondary vote, a follow.
Commissioner Rambin moves to rescind. Second.
Okay. It's moved and seconded that we will rescind the vote on item number 17 from yesterday's meeting. Are there any further discussions from the commissioners regarding this motion? Hearing none, we will now have a roll call vote. Commissioners in favor, please indicate by stating aye. Those opposed by stating no. And if abstaining, please state this. Ms. Maeda, please conduct a roll call vote. Commissioner Santillan?
Aye.
Commissioner Rambin? Aye. Commissioner Sasaki?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Alegre? Aye. Commissioner Stockwell?
Aye.
Commissioner Klaus Buckner? Aye. Thank you. So it is unanimous to rescind yesterday's vote on item number 17, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We will now entertain a vote for the we will now entertain a vote for the Department of Housing and Community Development proposed adoption of the amendments with the addendum to the 2025 California Building Code Part 2, Title 24.
Commissioner Rambin move to approve as amended to correct the typographical error and to strike out the confusing language in section 310.4 using criteria 1 and criteria 6 of the 9-point criteria.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Klausberger, second.
Great. It's moved and seconded that the motion is approved, adoption of the amendments with the addendum as stated. Is there any further discussion from the commissioners regarding this motion? Hearing none, we will now have a roll call vote. Commissioners in favor, please indicate by stating aye. Opposed by stating no, and if abstaining, please state that. Ms. Maeda, please conduct a roll call vote. Commissioner Santillan?
Aye.
Commissioner Rambin?
Aye.
Commissioner Sasaki?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Legray? Aye. Commissioner Stockwell?
Aye.
Commissioner Klaus-Buckner?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. The vote is unanimous on, the motion is approved as amended and stating criteria 1 and 6. So the motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick time check. We did hit 90 minutes, so our ASL interpreters would like to take a 10-minute break.
Certainly. Okay. And so it is 10:46, so we will reconvene at 10:56.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back to the meeting, Building Standards Commission meeting. We are now moving on to agenda item number 24. And this is comments from the public on issues not on the agenda. Comments regarding items not on the agenda may be briefly discussed, with a reminder that the comments are limited to 4 minutes per speaker, but no action may be taken by the commission. At this time, I would like to remind the public who wish to speak on item number 24 to please put yourself in the queue now by using the raised hand feature in Zoom, or listen for the chair to ask for comments from the phone and unmute yourself at that time. We request that you identify yourself. Please clearly state your name and who you represent. Any members of the public in the conference center that have submitted speaker cards or wish to speak, we can also entertain those individuals. Barbara, please check Zoom and then the phone for commenters on this agenda item number 24.
So there are no hands raised and there are currently no phone participants.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, just to confirm, Laura Mills confirmed there's no one in the LA office conference center with comments.
Thank you. Well, then that concludes agenda item 24. Thank you for that item.
Oh, the written comment.
Do we have written comments on that item?
Yeah,
Before we close
apologies.
it up?
Yeah, for agenda item 24, we did receive one comment.
Oh, please. Yes, if you want to
so
summarize
summarize
that.
it,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Constituent Wayne Fishback provided comments requesting that the commission request emergency legislation to eliminate all local ordinance changes in areas affected by the Southern California wildfires. Mr. Fishback provided an additional late comment further addressing the nexus between homelessness, the lack of affordable housing, housing costs, housing loss to fires in LA, and local building codes.
Thank you. All right, that concludes then agenda item number 24. Okay, thank you for all the comments. Next is agenda item number 25, which is future agenda items. Do any of the commissioners have items they wish to have placed on future agenda items? Hearing none.
Can I have 2 minutes before we adjourn?
Yes, we have 2 minutes from the executive director.
Thank
Use
you.
her outside voice, please. Yes, outside voice.
Thank you. Typically, we have the executive director report, but we don't have it because we were expecting to take longer. This was, we were planning for a difficult meeting, so it may seem too easy, but this is why you have no idea how much work is behind it. And I want to thank the Standards Commission staff and special thanks to, well, I don't want the special thanks, but typically she reports to me, but I start reporting to her 1 month before the meeting. So thank you. Everybody, I don't want to miss anybody, but that was impressive. That's my first big meeting here, so I was impressed as well. And thank you for the new chair. One day, so we thought it's a coincidence, but now it's not. So thank you. Thank you for our commissioners. And I don't want to forget HKI. This is our last meeting here. So thank you, folks. We will miss you when you're not here, but also we can't show, I don't know how to show our appreciation. I would take you for lunch, everybody, but I don't know.
We'll think of something.
Thank you very much. And thank you, DSA, for housing us in LA. It helped us a lot, especially after the fires. So I don't want to miss anybody, but thank you. That's we completed the adoption process. We'll start with codification, but it feels better now.
Yeah. And a round of applause to you too. Thank you for your leadership.
I'll just listen to Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, for providing that support. All right, so next we're going to move on to agenda item number 26. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Sasaki, move to adjourn our meeting.
Commissioner Glassberger, second.
Great. It is moved and seconded that we will adjourn this meeting.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, commissioners in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Guys.
I feel like I need to keep this in order.